Welcome, friends. Thank you for braving the ice and joining us out here. My name is David. I'm the Director of Education here at Signature Theater. And thanks for those of you that joined us from home also. Going to give a couple announcements, introduce our guests, and then we'll launch into a conversation. It's pretty simple format. My friends here in person, if at any point you have a question, just raise your hand good and high. I'll call on you at an appropriate moment. Our friends at home, if you have a question, just send it into the chat, and a member of our staff will pass it on to us when the opportunity arises. Things coming up here at Signature. We are dark right now, which almost never happens anymore. But starting in a couple weeks, Safety Not Guaranteed opens here in the Max on the beginning of March. Next month's Inside Signature will be with scenic designer Paige Hathaway, who's designed many shows here, and she'll be walking us through the ins and outs of scenic design. So that's what we've got coming up here over the next couple of weeks. We have with us today Nick Blaemire, who's written many a show here at Signature, and we are excited to see Safety Not Guaranteed. How you doing today, Nick?
Thank you. I'm great. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, glad to have you. So let's. You're an artistly type writer, actor, musician. Tell us your artistic origin story. Where does it start?
Not far from here.
Okay.
I was born in D.C. I grew up in Bethesda. I started really young over at Bethesda Academy for Performing Arts, which is now Imagination Stage. A wonderful teacher named Tim Reagan just sort of helped me understand really quickly the power of the theater community, and it was something that I keyed into really fast, that over here you can make believe and you can do it with other people, and then suddenly you're creating this kind of collective reality that is akin to fantasy, but then it when you're watching something, you're also sort of included, and it's just such an amazing transference. And I'm really grateful to Tim, because I found sort of the rest of my life, like when I met him, and then he ended up moving to Sidwell Friends as a drama teacher, and I followed him there, and got into adventure theater through him, where I met Lynn Sharp Spears, and did some shows at adventure theater, which was like a sort of a great dipping my toe into professional life as a middle schooler, early high schooler. And I just got more and more serious about it as I went, and started writing in high school. I got really lucky at Sidwell to have a teacher named John Elko, who introduced me to a whole different side of the arts. I had met musicals. My parents are musical people. My dad plays the drums. My mom plays the piano. I met, Phantom of the Opera and Les Mis when I was 11 and 12, but then John Elko showed me Gertrude Stein and Sam Shepard and Cubism and all of these sort of strange avant ways of making theater that really exploded my brain. And so I started writing around them when I was 15. And senior year of Sidwell, you do kind of a senior project. Some people do service, and Sidwell's a wonderful place because it's a Quaker school, so there's a real service mentality laced into the program. And I decided to write a show, a one-man show that we would then do for different communities. And it was just a real kind of aha moment that, you can not only interpret and transmit, but you can kind of create the box that you're putting everybody in. And I've just become more and more addicted to the fun of it as I've gone.
That's amazing. So I didn't realize the writing started so young for you. That's great. So did you end up going to school for theater?
Yeah. Okay. I went to school for musical theater performance at University of Michigan.
Great.
Which has now become this kind of, like, it's almost like a farm team for Broadway, it feels like. It's really gotten sort of intense, and I think the whole musical theater BFA world has gotten really intense because younger and younger people are being plucked for Broadway shows. I think that kind of started with Rent and Hairspray and Spring Awakening, where suddenly a 17-year-old could be the lead, and that hadn't really started when I was in school. So I sort of got there because my friend who I had met at Musical Theater Center, which is now part of Adventure Theater, Brian Spatolnik, he had gone to Michigan, and I went and visited him, and my brain expanded once more. And Michigan's a great place because Ann Arbor is this very cool kind of crunchy town with this big university mentality, but a very small theater program. And so I felt like, a lot of people go to school for theater and they get a specified kind of conservatory thing, but they don't get a college experience. And Michigan had both. And so I got to get a BFA, but I also got to go to football games.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Love that.
Yeah.
So went to Michigan, then what is it? Straight to New York for you, or what comes after college?
Man. So I came back to do summer stock. Well, it wasn't really summer stock. I did a summer show at Toby's Dinner Theater, and had a great time and was home. And I have a great buddy who happens to work at Signature Theater. His name's James Gardner. I don't know if he's around.
Yeah.
Yes, there are some fans of him. I'm not a fan, but I hear people are. And James and I had always talked about writing and writers, and James was at the University of Maryland and doing Neil LaBute and, just like ripping apart plays and trying to kind of find the voices of our generation, that Neil is kind of a Gen X playwright. And the transition from high school to college is a traumatic one. It's sort of like a quietly traumatic one, because you're leaving home for the first time, but you're also really kind of leaving the definition of yourself. You don't kind of, there's something exciting about going to a new place and saying, well, here's the new me. But in the process of that, you're also letting something go.
Sure.
And that became kind of an inflection point for our friends, our high school buddies at Musical Theater Center, where I met James. And we started talking about that a lot. And I started writing songs about those moments of fissure. And we started writing a musical about it.
Yeah.
And while I was doing Toby's, we just put up a reading of the show. We did 3 weeks of writing. We got some buddies together. We did a reading at Imagination Stage, and people were cool about it. And it was like, oh, this is maybe another, maybe the next step from my one-man show in high school.
Yeah.
And that show ended up becoming Glory Days.
Yeah.
And so that whole trajectory from us kind of having that reading as a lark of oh, let's put on a show, let's feel what that feels like, became this relationship with Eric Schaefer and Signature, and developing here in the garage, which is a place that changed my life in the 7th or 8th grade. I remember seeing Cabaret with Megan Lawrence and Steve Kupo, and it was just the most raw, real, sort of, Sam Shepard, Gertrude Stein version of musical theater.
Yeah.
And that made me really excited, and so we were like, let's try to make a musical that does that isn't all the bells and whistles, but is, closer to something like Suburbia by Eric Bogosian, or Our Town, or The Fantastics, where anybody can put on the show. And we developed the show with Eric for about a year and a half, kind of driving back and forth from Michigan. Benj Pasek is a buddy of mine, of Pasek and Paul, and he got in the car with me and came and played a part, and we would come to the theater and do readings, and we didn't have any training, so we were sort of learning how to write as we went. And then I guess it was our senior year, there was a show that Duncan Sheik and James Lapine were writing called The Nightingale. They were developing at Signature, and they dropped out of the season. And Eric called and was like, do you want to do your show? And again, it still felt like a lark. It was sort of like, okay, well, this is fun, but I'm an actor, and we had, I remember the moment of walking into the Max and seeing this $300,000 light wall that the set designer had created, and was like, oh, this is not a lark. This is
a real show.
Yeah, these are jobs for people, and that became this other exciting thing of oh, right, when you make something, it gives other people a reason to come together, and it might be worth something to them. So that was a big moment, but it was still sort of well, we're 22. What is this? You know, it's like, this is sort of still kind of a summer job. And then we got this great review in the Washington Post. And suddenly theaters from New York were coming down, and the Old Globe was here, and it was like, there might be a future here. And then we moved to Broadway, and we closed on opening night, and the rest is my life.
But you were in a show on Broadway at the same time, right?
I was, yeah.
Okay, so and that was your first Broadway show, I'm assuming? So what are you learning about Broadway, like being thrown into this from these multiple sides at the same time?
Yeah, it's taken 15 years to unpack with my therapist, but
Sure.
I think the major wake-up call was that Broadway is like network television, in that there are real needs and concerns that are financial foremost, and that gets kind of confused with like, this is the best theater in the world, because I think New York City is where I live now, and I think it's, you know, certainly one of the greatest cities in the world. But there's a lot of financial pressure on these shows. And coming to Signature, I know there are financial pressures of keeping this place afloat, certainly since it upgraded to this beautiful space, but it's not the same. And suddenly when you're there, Crybaby was my Broadway debut, and we had done it at La Jolla Playhouse, and it had gone swimmingly, and we got great reviews there, and the show seemed like it was in good shape. And then we came in, and suddenly it was like, oh, well, In the Heights and Passing Stranger here, and where do you fit in the season, and are we going to get any Tony nominations? And oh, the only theater we can get is the Marriott Marquis, which is 1,600 seats. So now you got to sell that. And it's a real estate game of, you know, okay, well, if we're at the Marriott Marquis and all these other shows have opening nights, there becomes this like jockeying for where the opening night is in the spring schedule moving towards Tony nominations. And because of the opening night, like the New York Times availability to come to Crybaby, we ended up having, instead of the sort of normal 2 weeks of previews, we had 5 weeks of previews, which sounds good, but it actually is too much time, and everybody starts going crazy and overcorrecting.
Sure.
And so the show broke in those previews. And at the same time we were doing that, I was having the exact opposite experience with Glory Days, where we had 5 days of rehearsal and 2 weeks of previews.
That's insane.
And we weren't capitalized, and like everything that was happening at Crybaby, where it was kind of too big to fail and therefore was falling apart, we were this kind of scrappy, you know, little engine that could, that was really kind of struggling to stay a little engine that could inside of the Broadway expectation.
Wow, that is insane.
It was insane.
Any questions from our audience so far? Nothing yet. Oh, please.
I have a question, because you mentioned the Washington Post.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard the news lately, but so who's going to be reviewing?
Yeah, I mean, these are, so I'll repeat for our friends at home. The question was, with the state of the Post as it is, who's going to be reviewing theater?
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
I guess my posts are going to become more important now. So.
Yeah, Barbara Bear's going to save us all with the
That's
Facebook
right.
posts.
Honestly,
Thank you.
freelancers, thank you.
Thank you,
it's,
Barbara.
It's terrifying, and it's so funny because, you know, the relationship between artist and critic is so adversarial, and with Peter Marks, who was the one who gave us the rave at the Post in 2007, when the show moved, he panned it on Broadway.
Really?
And I think he felt, you know, it's a tough job, because you kind of know you're anointing a show. If you're a critic, it's sort of the power of the critic is to say, like, I choose this one, or the New York Times has the critic's pick, which is a whole other conversation, who picks those shows. But I think he felt like, well, I didn't mean Broadway, you know, and I understand what he meant. And I don't think we had actually earned sort of the right to be a commercial vehicle. And later, now that James works as a publicist, he had a relationship with Peter that ended up becoming very positive sort of 10 years down the line, and he apologized to us and wrote a lovely thing in the Post about how he actually always loved the show, and it was a great moment where I was like, oh, I think I'm starting to understand how the tension between artist and critic can be productive, because in some ways they're the eyes of the, in their best sense, they're the eyes of the public before the public gets to see it, and sort of can give a shortcut to like, this show's ready for you to see, this one's not, they're all expensive. That's sort of another tension of being an artist, is saying, I want to do art, please everybody pay exorbitant amounts to come see my work, and I think they're a good gatekeeper in that way. But, it's so ironic that Naveen Kumar, who is such a good critic, and I think is so good at sort of walking the line of understanding the role as a gatekeeper, but not putting his ego before his taste. The fact that he is gone is absolutely wrong and really scary, because it shows the necessity of the critic, that we need people there to converse, with in order to make the system work.
Thanks for starting us off there. You have a question? Yeah.
Well, that's on the subject. So the movie, the difference to you, in the correction of a critic, who to me I guess is an intelligent person at least.
Yeah.
An influencer, which I first see.
Okay, we're.
Influencer, and I say, so what? I don't care what you have to say.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're just to reiterate for our folks at home who can't hear, let's talk the difference between the critic and the influencer and the role that social media plays in all of this.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's definitely, I mean, I don't have to tell all of you, we're all feeling the chaos of this moment. And I think a lot of that chaos started when everybody got a mic.
Yep.
And, one of the things that I've always felt about making art is that I understand why it's so hard to get shows up, because it's a vetting process, and what Eric was doing for us, he was doing us a favor when we were 20 and 21. We were so ready to have our show on stage, but we weren't. We thought we were. And, there were all kinds of things that got remedied in terms of the storytelling over the course of that development process. And so when you think about how easy it is now for somebody to get online and say, I didn't like that, it's just like giving power to the laziest of instincts.
Sure.
And I think that's really, it's really painful. And like, I have friends who made this show Queen of Versailles that just happened. And I have an affinity for flops, having made a couple. So I also just have always kind of liked the underdog or the track 13 on an album. I think like it's easy to like the hit. It's just like, in a way, you're a lemming to like the hit.
Yeah,
and
sure.
I've always sort of struggled with that, because it's not to say that, the things that are popular aren't great,
Right.
but Queen of Versailles was a really interesting idea for a show, and kind of a transgressive one, that got packaged wrong because of the Broadway expectation. And it just got ripped to shreds by sort of a gleeful
That's the
group
thing, right?
of
People were
influencers.
rejoicing over this.
Yes, they were. And it's just like, where's your humanity?
Right.
Like, and it feels like that's the thing, is it doesn't feel real to put up the, influencer, to press send. It feels like you're playing a video game and you're not actually changing the course of somebody's life.
Right.
And certainly, making it harder for artists to risk.
Right, to get anything produced in the future.
Yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, please.
I guess you're a good person to ask this question. I'm confused. I understand Beaches is opening again on Broadway. Is that the same show that was here 10 years ago?
That's a good question. It's the same book writer. It's got a new score. New composer was brought in. Yeah, and new production. Obviously, it's been more than a decade since we did it. But
It's
yeah,
a Theater Calgary production, right?
yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
But
I think especially when IP is involved, or
Yeah.
intellectual property, everybody gets really, they get worried that it's not the perfect version. And
the novelist on that one is the book writer. So like, there's a
That's
real
right.
embedded
That's right.
interest in it. Yeah. Speaking of IP, let's talk Safety Not Guaranteed.
All right.
So this is an adaptation of a film.
Yeah.
For those who haven't seen the film, what's the story here?
It's about an intern at a dying magazine in Seattle. Her name is Darius, and she hears in like a pitch meeting about this classified ad that says, "Wanted someone to go back in time with me." This is not a joke. P.O. Box 91, Ocean View, Washington, 99393. You'll get paid when you get back. Must bring your own weapons. I've only done this once before. Safety not guaranteed. And, I mean, it's catnip for a reporter and for any of us. It's like, who wrote that ad? What is going on the other side of that computer? And why does this person think that time travel is possible, much less already been done once before?
Right.
And so this kind of a little bit depressed, a little bit irreverent intern, Darius, accepts an assignment to kind of go find the person who wrote the ad. And in the process, she finds a real weirdo on the other end, and somebody who may or may not be dangerous, not entirely clear, but definitely magnetic. And the show sort of becomes this adventure as they try to make sense of whether he's crazy or not, or whether he can really do what he says he can do.
What excites you about this story?
Oh man, so many things. I think the biggest thing is that I love time travel stories because I think they really ask us, what would you change about your life, and should you? And I think that's just a huge idea to me. I mean, speaking of like you're, asking me questions about my own life. Glory Days, perfect example. That was painful to close on opening night, but I wouldn't change it for anything because it is the scaffolding that has gotten me to this place in my life, in my like maturity and my ability to be a good father is related to not getting what I wanted when I was so young. And so I think the show is about regret and how these characters sort of interface with the idea of like, what would I do if the time machine was real? And then ultimately, I think it's about realizing that, even if there's tragedy and complexity to all of our journeys, that they're perfect in a way. And if you go back and start trying to pick out the pieces of your experience or your story that you want to keep, who knows what complication you're creating. And that's, the basis of time travel stories.
Right.
You think about like, I want to go back to, fix my parents' marriage in Back to the Future, but it, almost breaks the world. And that's true. And it's sort of, I think it's really fascinating in the age of AI and this like sort of comfort crisis that we're in, where everything is so easy to, poke the bear of other people's lives through a computer, or I want a picture of Santa Claus on a surfboard. I can make it so easily. It doesn't mean it should exist.
Sure.
And I think especially as a writer, my wife and I talk about this a lot, that the fact that it's hard is what makes it great.
Right.
To quote Tom Hanks in A League of Their Own. But that's like, it's about the effort and the challenge of being a person, the way that we've discovered things about ourselves. Those are hard-won discoveries. And if it was easy and we could just press a button and go back and fix it, what do you lose in that process?
Wow. So I want to talk adaptation
Yeah.
a little bit. Yeah. There have been plenty of screen-to-stage adaptations, and some of them, I'm not going to name names. I scratch my head and I go, but there's not songs in those characters.
Yeah.
What in this movie made you think these are people who sing?
Well, one of the things that I love about musicals is answering that question.
Yeah.
And if you can't answer that question, it shouldn't be a musical, right? And often that doesn't get answered, and it, as you say, like IP, no disparaging Beaches, I haven't seen this new version, but a lot of IP is just like, I think that more people would come to this title.
Yep.
That's not really true for Safety Not Guaranteed.
Right.
It's a small movie. It cost $750,000 to make. It was a Sundance movie. It was kind of mumblecore, 2012. Like a mid-sized movie, but the ideas are huge.
Right.
And what I realized is that songs are time machines. We time travel all the time. You know, if I'm like 7th grade, everyone's like, I know where I was.
The soundtrack for my 7th grade.
And when you are 13 and 14, that's when your musical taste is being created. So there's this idea that like, okay, so the will they, won't they of being, like, can they pull off time travel is the arc of the show. But we have 17 songs along the way that prove, you know, that you can time travel in each one. And the thing that really sealed the deal for me was the music in the movie is written by a guy named Ryan Miller. Ryan Miller is the lead singer and songwriter of this band, Guster. Guster is a band that I fell in love with when I was 13, 14. Ryan Miller taught me how to sing without knowing me, and taught how to write songs. And I ran into him at a party once, and we totally got along. He was wearing paisley pants, as he often is, and I'm sure when you see him, he will be. He's just a wonderful, warm guy, incredibly smart, and we started talking about, you know, writing a musical. And then I went home and I watched this movie, which I'd already loved and already thought would be a cool musical, and I saw his name, and I'd forgotten that he had written the score to this movie. And it was just like, oh, this is perfect. If he'll let me use some Guster songs that are written in 2002, that have this sort of time travel to them, and could potentially write more songs to fill out the score from his perspective now as a 53-year-old, what could that be? And it has turned out to be what I hoped it would be, which is far deeper than the sort of skin of the story might suggest.
Had he written a musical before?
No, but you know, it's interesting, like, and I certainly know how you all may feel about, you know, pop writers coming into theater. It's like, well, you don't know the rules, and it's not just, songs aren't just about writing, it's not just about writing a song that's like a good vibe. It has to tell the story. It has to move the story. There have to be decisions. There have to be changes. But Ryan is sort of an instinctive theatrical storyteller. The songs that I fell in love with when I was 13 and 14 have these giant bridges, these sort of like operatic moments of change that these characters take. And so he's been like a duck to water to this and really loves it. And he's also friends with Anais Mitchell, who wrote Hadestown, and Sarah Bareilles, who wrote Waitress, who have been helpful to him to sort of understanding you got to humble yourself to this form, that this form is hard. But when you click it into place, there's kind of nothing better. It's you can go to a concert and have a nice night, but when you take a song and the context for the song is perfect and unlocks something about what the character is feeling, it does something else to the body, to the senses, that is sort of a higher level of experience, I've found, and I think they all have found too as writers. So he's been an amazing partner.
Have you had to teach him form, or are you just going to trust his instincts? And
It's been, I mean, we definitely, he's been amazing, and this is a tough thing too, like, he's a rock star, right? So like, I go to shows and it's like 5,000 people screaming his lyrics at him, and then we come backstage and he's like, okay, so I want songs, like, talk to me about I want songs. But I think he's happy, he's like mastered that form.
That's awesome.
You know, and there's something, especially for curious people, which he really is, and I've never seen somebody, I'm really, a huge pet peeve of mine is when people don't ask questions. And you, like, when you're out with somebody new, they're just talking about themselves. It's like, where's your curiosity? And he is the inverse of that. It's like, he's interviewing everybody. I'm sure he could sit with each of you and, you know, it's like the Humans of New York, you know, interviewer. He has that ability. And so he's able to humble himself to this process. And to me, who he didn't know from Adam, but he listened to some of my stuff and he thought, okay, you know, you seem to know what you're doing, like, try to teach me and let's see what happens. And it's taken me some time to have the kind of courage to tell him no, because I'm like, well, that's pretty good, you know, but if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And that has been really, I think, just like a huge bonding place for both of us, that he knows I have his best interests at heart.
Yeah.
And I know that he also wants this to be a night that is worth all of you coming out for, you know, and I think we're doing that, and I think that it's in huge part due to his generosity of spirit.
It's great. I know the other two shows of yours that we've done here at Signature, you wrote the score.
Yeah.
Was that ever a possibility here, or was it as soon as you saw Ryan's name, you knew it was him?
It was the latter, but
Okay.
in a lot of ways, I'm getting to have my cake and eat it too, in a way, because I'm structuring where the songs go.
Sure.
I'm working with him on what the songs do, and certainly when it comes to the sort of invisible job of arranging and orchestrating songs, that's something that he's never done. So like
sure.
when it comes to like putting a band together, they get in a room, whatever the bass player plays, that's what the bass part is.
Yeah.
But here, those pieces have to tell a story and have to really help us understand the action. And so you think about Jonathan Tunick taking Stephen Sondheim's raw materials, you know, diamonds, and finding ways to lace themes together and enhance and broaden the palette.
Yeah.
That has been something where I feel like I've been able to kind of scratch my musical itch.
Mm-hmm.
And Bill Sherman, who's doing the arrangements and orchestrations, is amazing. He did In the Heights. He produced the Hamilton album. He produced the Just in Time album that just was nominated for a Grammy. And he and I have been buddies for years. And he's really generous too. And so it's sort of the three of us sitting and saying, well, like, what if it's this? What if it's this? And a lot of the time, Ryan will throw out an idea that is incredibly stylistically cool, but doesn't help move the story forward. And we're there to say, like, well, how can we take that, the germ of that, and do it in a way that's dramatic? And that, I mean, it's so fun. I miss writing music. I definitely do. But on this one, it felt like the right partnership.
Great. Any questions, please?
Like, the thing is, like, when you say no, and it's just you deciding, don't you second guess yourself and wonder whether you should ask somebody else if they agree and that kind of thing?
Talk about getting second opinions, you're trusting yourself.
Oh my God, yes. Yes. It's pretty lonely in that way because I'm trying to take care of him, but I don't know if I'm right. And what I've really lucked out with in this process, and part of the reason we're here, is that I trust Matt and James and Ethan and Annika as sounding boards and as people who know how to make musicals to kind of knock those ideas against. And Bill Sherman, the arranger and orchestrator, and Oliver Butler, our amazing director who did What the Constitution Means to Me, they are also just so effortlessly clear on what tells the story well or not. And I would say Ryan, the thing that is amazing and also tricky is that he can come up with a metaphor for anything. I give him an idea and he's like, oh, well, that's like leaping in the air. But the problem with a metaphor is that on a first listen, it's hard to unpack.
Sure.
And the song's moving at a certain pace. And so even yesterday, there's a 11 o'clock number that we're working on. It's really an emotional moment for Darius. And he had some like unbelievably beautiful metaphors in the song. And I was like, how do we cut these? Like, they're so good. And I walked out to the director, to Oliver, and I was like, look at this. Here's the version of it where there's no metaphor and it's just plot, just story. Do you miss the metaphor? And he's like, no. The song is doing it. You got to trust it. And it's fascinating because you then look back at stuff like Spring Awakening that has more of a smudged literalism to it. I think we're trying to find that line because at BAM, we did our world premiere production of this at Brooklyn Academy of Music in the Harvey Theater. It's a 900-seat theater. It's a beautiful space. But there were a lot of lyrics that went by that we got dinged on as being too general or too sort of metaphorical. And so to watch Ryan take that note and do it in his way, but come up with a way to tell the story and keep the spine of the storytelling moving, it has been really cool to see. And he's just like, he's graduating his thesis program on lyric writing.
That's amazing. I love it. Other questions? Any other questions? So I'm assuming you had to go to the creators of this film to adapt it, or to the
Yeah.
And was this an easy sell for them, or are they?
It was the easiest. I can't even tell you. It's the strangest thing, and a lot of people say this about, stuff that works, is that serendipity has to play a part in it, and that there's also the converse side of it is that musicals don't want to get made, movies don't want to get made. There's a sense of like you're gonna be pushing uphill. So what fuels you to push through all of those challenges, and it is, especially on this one, moments of serendipity, where I ran into Ryan at a party. I happened to watch the movie and happened to see his name, and I happened to see another name, which is this man named Peter Seraph. Peter Seraph is a movie producer who did Little Miss Sunshine, The Farewell. He's an amazing independent movie producer. And he also produced a movie that I was in 15 years ago that never came out.
Oh.
It was a very, very strange experience. It was a giant movie. The director of photography was Tak Fujimoto, who did Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Silence of the Lambs. Christopher Walken, John Turturro, Edie Falco. It was like a crazy, I was like, I'm in a big movie.
That no one saw.
Never came out.
Yep.
And I had a moment with this very nice producer at Craft Services where we had a real chat, and his name is Peter. And I went back and looked at that movie's, credits, and it was the same name. And so I had my agent reach out, and he was like, I remember Nick. He wants Ryan to do it? I love Ryan. Yeah, you guys can have the rights.
That's amazing.
It was like a week. And I'm writing 4 other adaptations, one of which took 5 years to get the rights. So it was serendipitous, yeah, for sure.
Have any of the creators seen the show?
Oh yeah. So
Okay.
Colin Trevorrow, who directed it and went on to direct all of the Jurassic World movies.
Okay, wow.
He was anointed by this movie because Steven Spielberg came and saw it at Sundance and said, who directed that? And as a lot of kind of superhero movies and sci-fi movies are now sort of populated by indie directors who get a big budget, the hope is that they can keep the emotional intimacy that they found with a big second unit. And Colin was amazing. I mean, he really, I think for a lot of people, and this is why I like adaptation, it's kind of sad when you write a movie that only one set of people ever say the words. And one of the things that's so wonderful about theater is that, you can see Doug Sills as Tevye, you can see Topple as Tevye, you can see Zero Mostel. Everyone's got a different take. The show kind of changes in the hands that it's being held by. And that was the thing that got them excited. It was like, oh my God, we're going to go see this in a high school one day, and it's going to be inspiring somebody else to take the same journey that James and I took, and that Colin and Peter and Ryan took, And so there's really been only like this sense of like tickled kid joy from all of them. I mean, Colin came to rehearsal at BAM, and we're in there, and he's sitting back there. He's got a big watch, and he's a Hollywood guy, and he's like, and we get to this one scene where there's like this moment of sort of a character distracts another character by like pretending something really serious is happening, and he wrote a little note and slid it over to me, and I was like really nervous, like what does this note say? And the note said like, she should say, scatter, scatter. I was like, sure, but he's just like excited.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing place to come from, and it's exactly why I wanted to come here.
Sure.
It was because I want to be around people who are excited to make theater and who also have the expertise to back it up. And so that has been, that's been the experience both on the getting the powers that be to say yes, both on the film side and the theater side.
Do you feel an obligation when you're writing an adaptation to be faithful, or do you feel like there's room to riff?
There has to be.
Yeah.
I think the only good adaptations are ones where the material is porous enough to riff on.
Okay.
Something like, I used to want to do Ferris Bueller, speaking of Tak Fujimoto. And I think Ferris Bueller is like kind of a perfect movie, which means that there's not a lot of room for me. And there needs to be a writer's humanity inside of every story. I think when we're talking about adaptation, sometimes we end up in more of the copy-paste
Right.
scenario where it's, okay, this is a property, my least favorite word, that works, and we're going to put songs in, and it's just going to be the screenplay with songs. But that doesn't click together. It doesn't become more than the sum of its parts. So I'm really interested in what is useful about a source material and what time and distance, and perspective can show you, and also, a certain amount of difference of opinion. I mean,
Sure.
We have a very different ending in this version of the show than the movie does, and I think it's an improvement. I think it's interesting, and I would be happy to have the conversation about like why I think so. It's a risk, and I certainly feel scared about that. But I feel supported in it because the show is sort of exploring different pieces of the movie than,
Okay.
It's hard when you write an original thing. James and I can attest to that when you write an original thing, there's no perspective. It's just sort of like, this is the thought undistilled. And when you have that privilege of distance, you can see things maybe a little more clearly.
Where do you see you in this version of the story?
I mean, everywhere. I feel like I'm Darius. I feel like I'm Jeff, the sort of douchebag boss. I see myself in Arnaud, the kind of nerdy co-intern of Darius. I see myself in Kenneth, the guy who says he's got a brilliant idea but isn't sure he can prove it. These characters are really relatable, and that's, I think that's the only way anything works, is if the person making it, the people making it, or organically see themselves inside of the characters. Otherwise, it really does feel like sort of a left brain, sort of analytical project. But this is an emotional project for me.
Good, love it. What are the challenges and joys of Safety Not Guaranteed for you?
I mean, we're really trying to push the envelope.
Yeah.
I think a thing that I feel that is connected to the sort of network TV-ification of Broadway is that there seems like there's a way to do musicals. But every musical that I love pushes the form and risked something in order to prove that the form could do something different. Passing Strange, In the Heights, Spring Awakening being examples. It's really hard to do, and it's the thing that I gravitate to, which puts me at a bit of a vulnerable place of okay, so I want this show to be both as naturalistic and detailed as a play, but also as weird and wild as your favorite concert that you ever went to, and I want both of those things to live in harmony. And actually, I think they want to help you understand the themes and the characters. Going back to Songs Are a Time Machine, I think the songs in this are sort of like the inner rock star of every character getting a chance to fantasize about what life could be like. And then there's kind of a moment of disappointment or sadness when they have to descend out of the song and back to the scene where, time travel doesn't exist.
Sure.
And so trying to nail the fulcrum of all of those moves and tell the story in a way that adds up and isn't just kind of a hodgepodge of ideas, I'm very humbled by that. I think storytelling is really so hard, and the ones that we love that seem to do it so easily, it's just, I feel intense compassion for them as we are upstairs just kind of beating our heads against the wall. And we had a moment yesterday, we did a read-through on Monday, and I was really not happy. I was scared because I had done a big structural change. The actors are great, they're amazing, and the production I wasn't worried about.
Sure.
My writing, I think I saw some holes in my writing. And I was like, how am I going to fix these? And now we're out of time, and we start tech in 2.5 weeks. And we went into another room, we talked about it, and it was the associate choreographer, David, who was like, I think the thing that's messing me up is X. And I got full body chills, and I was like, that's how we fix it.
Wow.
And we fixed it, and it was 3 lines different. And the lead actress, Mia Pak, who is unbelievable, and get ready, because she's a star, she cried when she read it.
Wow.
It's 3 lines different, But what it did to the song was like what we all love about musicals, that when it works so profoundly.
Yeah.
And so to be at a place where I could go from hopelessness to excitement in the span of 5 minutes, you know, that's very scary, but it's like emotional base jumping. Like I'm here for it.
I love it. Questions? Yeah, one online?
So we do have one online. This is a bit of a detour from what we've been talking
That's fine.
about. But people are curious to hear about you playing Adolph Green in the film Maestro.
Let's talk Maestro.
All right. I mean, dream come true.
Yeah.
Off the charts, dream come true. Acting has been a real challenge, I think all actors would tell you that since the pandemic, it's like 70% less jobs. And it's just really terrifying. And I would say I used to go out for auditions, you know, once or twice a week, and now it's like once or twice a month at best, which is why I'm very grateful that I have writing to sort of create income and also scratch the artistic itch, because I think it's really sad for actors. I think what's hard about being an actor is the waiting to get the permission to do the job. And so the audition for Maestro was one line and to tell a joke. And I was like, that's it? Like, okay. But in a way, I think that kind of, you know, eye roll was good. I wasn't nervous, and I just told this joke, and my dad's been telling me dad jokes for a long time, so I was ready. And Adolph Green is kind of a dad joke king. He's just a guy I totally related to, and I got really lucky to get the job and to be working with a guy as cool and nerdy as Bradley Cooper. He really, I think, you know, it's like a liability of being that handsome is that you don't get to do a lot of the kind of like smaller work. He like got skyrocketed to like the poster, the movie poster, but he's a theater nerd and he loves getting into the muck. And he was just so reverent of Leonard Bernstein's story, and everybody he cast was a genius. And we had this moment. So I sang one song in the movie. I sang a couple when we shot it, and it was during COVID, so everyone's wearing masks, and we're in this house in Forest Hills, Queens. Everyone's wearing masks, and then like right before we shoot it, they take off the masks, and we pretend like we'd, been partying all night, which is really the acting that's going on. And and it was like 3 a.m. by the time we got to do the song, and I had been there for 13 hours, and I forgot a lyric. I was nervous, and the camera's like right here. And the woman who played Betty Comden, Mallory Portnoy, who I love, and we actually did a concert at the Carlisle doing the Adolph Green and Betty Comden stuff. Amazing. Because Bradley and we loved the source material so much. But Mallory turned to me and was like, you messed up like a timeless lyric just now. And I was like, I know. And so it's like, now it's 3:45, they have to reset, there's 100 extras looking at me, and they say, okay, so we're done at 4 a.m. And if we don't finish at 4 a.m., it's overtime for 250 people. So like, please get this lyric right. And it was an amazing moment because I just like, it was either sink or swim. It was just like, I'm either gonna fail and like really hurt my standing in this room, or I'm gonna find my gumption. And it was, I was able to do it, and Bradley from the piano said, okay, go to the next song. And we just launched into the next song, totally improvised. We hadn't blocked it or planned it or anything. And it was like making theater. Like suddenly, like I knew exactly where I was.
That's so fun.
It was so fun, and the movie came out great, and he brought us to his house to watch it and talk about, do we like this take or this take? He empowered the actors in a way that I think he has felt like he didn't get, and now he's paying it forward, which is something that you dream a superstar will do. And I think the movie's beautiful. There's a 3-hour cut that I think is even better. And we got to sing at Lincoln Center because of him. We did a whole concert of all the stuff in the movie. It's just, that's the thing of being in show business is so bipolar because it can be so desolate and so scary and sad and depressing, and then you can have a moment, off of a lark audition that's just like totally reaffirms, being alive. So it was really, really good one.
Amazing. Barbara, did you have a question?
No, I don't have any questions.
I thought I saw your hand a minute ago, but that's
No,
okay.
no, you didn't, but I'm just enjoying this.
Great, glad you came. Right here,
Really?
please. What's next?
What's wrong with this? I have a problem in that I'm asking myself that question like every second. I take on too much. I'm writing 7 other shows. And the reason is because, 7 shows is like a doable income. Theater is not a place where you get rich off of the development of musicals. So I kind of have to do that many shows. But I also have found that like the pace that the plates spin gives room
Yeah.
to do others. So I'm writing an adaptation of August Rush, which is a movie from 2007, Warner Brothers movie that I'm really excited about. I'm doing a show. We're doing Soon.
Oh, great.
We did Soon off Broadway this past fall. We're going to do it again in the summer in New York. I'm writing a couple things I can't talk about, which I'm excited about. Just like sort of bigger, taking a swing at not being so underdogish about my choices. August Rush being an example of that. It's with Kathleen Marshall is directing it, and Tom Kitt, Pulitzer Prize winner, is writing it with me, and he's a joy. And I'm writing a couple movies that are chugging along. It's a really fun life, and I think the thing, my wife's a writer too, and we talk about this a lot, that going back to the AI thing, that I'm so gobsmacked by how exciting it is to be back here and to be doing this show. But the end point is also like quite sad, because it means like we're already at the beginning of the end of this process. And the real joy is in that muck, making the stuff and like trying to figure out if you've gotten it there. And it's such a paradoxical thing because, of course, when you're writing, you're expecting and you're imagining what it's gonna be. And now that we're here, I'm like, oh, they don't need me anymore, because like now they got to memorize their lines. I can't keep changing them.
Sure.
So it's I'm very grateful to get to do it.
That's great. Please.
Have you changed soon since the one that was here?
So Soon was what?
2015.
10 years ago? 11 years ago. Okay.
Yeah.
Has it changed much since then?
It has. So Soon, when it was here, was out of order. It was non-linear, and I thought that was cool. It was sort of confusing, and my agent came to like 3rd preview out of 7 and said, you made a big mistake putting it out of order. I think you should put it chronological, which was then, physically impossible with the amount of things that would have had to change. And I was really resentful of that note because I thought, I'm getting it, what's the problem? But he was really right, and I was still really learning about how to. There's a math to writing, of storytelling that has to be ingested, and I think a lot of writers want it to be, grabbed from the stars. But like, there's a real humbling craftsmanship that I didn't know as well as I thought I did when we did Soon. Certainly when we did Glory Days, and I think in the last 10 years I've sort of taken myself to grad school on structure. And so putting it in order, turns out, was the right choice. And, another big thing is that the context has changed. So when we did Soon's about the end of the world and about a woman who doesn't want to leave her East Village apartment because why try if everything's going down? And Trump hadn't happened, the pandemic hadn't happened. It was an abstract idea. And when we did it this past fall, we did it in an apartment in the East Village. And the intimacy of that really changed the show. There's something that's quite challenging about theater in that the proscenium can be quite distancing, and we're trying to figure out that same thing with safety. How do you reach across and grab the audience and pull them into the experience? And I had not figured that out on Soon, and it was crazy how profoundly the words that had not changed at all felt in the new order, in the new context. It was really just like a copy and paste job, and new actors. Although Josh Morgan, who is in Soon, is also in Safety and is a genius, and that cast was amazing. Alex Brightman, who's gone on to Fame and Fortune, was our lead. But this new group and the new energy and the new moment, those are the kind of biggest shifts.
Please.
Yes, I have seen the movie of Safety. You've explained some of the differences that we're going to experience, and that'll be good. I've also seen the August Rush movie. I have to ask. Some of the music in there I think is really, really good.
Yeah.
What all are you planning on changing?
Okay, so let's talk about August Rush, what you can talk about on this
Yes.
project.
That one I can talk about.
Okay.
So I love that question. There are great songs in August Rush. And they did a production of a completely different version of the show that John Doyle directed in Chicago in 2019. And they didn't use any songs from the movie. And it fell apart. It was not a good moment for that show. And I remember when it was being developed, I was jealous that I wasn't writing it. I thought, I know how to do that one. But it was just a weird moment of fate that it kind of came around to me. And my first thought was, well, we have 10 good songs right here. The craziness of August Rush is that there's actually 30 song moments in the show.
Wow.
So what we've done is we've retained all of the diegetic moments of performance in the show because it's about songwriters, it's about people who are making music. And it was really important to me to kind of show the X-ray machine of what happens, between presenting a song and the song that's happening privately, that both of those kind of versions of songs could exist in the show. And so Tom and I and my friend Van Hughes and a couple other writers as well, including John Legend, have written a bunch of songs that sort of, I think, help decorate and support the source material rather than throw it out. And I think that goes back to your question, when something is adaptable, part of the reason it's adaptable is because it works.
Right.
It might not work fully, it might not work as well as it could, and I actually think August Rush, the movie, is pretty dramatically inert. There's a lot of moments in it that are kind of montagey and gauzy. So what I've tried to do is, it's basically a modern Oliver meets Searching for Bobby Fischer with this kind of music prodigy at the center. And that's a really lofty kind of fairy tale idea, but it takes place in New York City, and it's a lost kid, and it's the foster system, and those are gritty things. And so I've really tried to set it in the real world and have this miraculous thing happen in the real world amidst musicians making real music. And those changes, I think, are supporting what has always been great about that source material. And it is a movie that makes people sob. So I got to take care of that, and I've been really kind of delicate about what pieces to change so as, to not knock it off its axis. But I love that challenge. And I especially love, there's a great song from the Safety movie, Big Machine, that Mark Duplass sings about halfway through, that is in the show and is sort of the basis for the style of the music that we then kind of blossomed off. But we'd be crazy to cut that song. It's right there. It's one less song to write. So I'm always interested in how do we support and not, square one is far scarier to me than, oh wow, there are pieces here that just need to be lit right.
Nick, we're just about out of time. Final question for the day. You are sitting in the audience watching something that you wrote. What's going on in that mind? How does it feed you? Tell us about the experience of watching your work happen in front of you.
Great question. I mean, it's often a this is your life moment.
Yeah.
And in some ways, I actually have found that I have to be careful not letting it be too much a this is your life moment, because there's so much work to be done that you have to be able to watch your work with an unsentimental eye and try to pay attention to what's clicking and when people are shifting in their seats, and you know how to make sure that the story is as taut as it possibly could be. But I struggle with that because I get so proud of the people doing the show, of the fact that it got there at all. And each time I do a new show, I'm like, you're going to be more rigorous this time. You're going to sit in that audience and you're going to work. And then I end up out there and I'm like, they're just so good. It's working. You know, and it's hard because it's a privilege to get your show up. And I feel like it's actually also just really important for they're at bats. You know, you need them in order to get better. So I feel you know, some sort of cocktail of pride and awe and fear and frustration that, you know, is not all that dissimilar from what all of you bring to going to see shows. You have your whole life, you have your day, and, you know, at the best moments, the show takes me away and I just sort of, you know, get to live inside of it like all of you. And it's, you know, I went and saw In Clay the other night, and I was just like I had no problems. I was, you know, time stopped.
Yeah.
And that's just, I think more than anything, I'm addicted to being in that seat, whether it's my show or not.
Yeah.
And when it's mine, it's you know, it's a special treat.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing your afternoon with us.
Thank you.
We'll see you all again
Great
soon.
questions. Thank you all.
Thank you.